So I would like to tell you a little bit about our project PicketLink and what is new recently in there. Maybe you remember the older versions, which were more about identity federation and SAML, but right now we have some interesting stuff. So I would like to actually show this part of the PicketLink, and maybe we can touch a little bit SAML stuff as well. So my agenda for today, a little overview of PicketLink and areas of usage, because PicketLink is kind of an umbrella for a couple of smaller projects, and I can actually show some of them. Then I was thinking what to do and what to present here. And I think that it would be maybe interesting for you to see Java EE application security from the new perspective, how we can manage. So I grabbed a little application which was some of our JBoss quick starts, and I moved it to PicketLink. So created authentication and authorization in PicketLink, and I hope this is going to be interesting for you. Then I will get a little bit of the identity management. Then there is only one slide of PicketLink Federation, just to express that it's there still. And very interesting stuff, which is PicketLink WildFly subsystems. Not yet in WildFly, but coming soon. It's waiting in Kabir's WildFly next branch. But it will be quite soon. So that's what I would like to talk about it. And also I can say that this stuff is also coming to AP63 as a technical preview. So as I already started, it's a application security framework for Java EE applications, and areas of usage are Java EE application security, identity management, identity federation, something what we call social login. Then also part of it is mobile security, mobile application security, and also REST application security. Some of the things are still work in progress, and so we might have some problems, but if you pop up to something, let us know. We have Jira, we have IRC, everything. And I think the response are quite good for the community. So a little picture from our documentation, which will actually show what it is, but it was already on the slide before. Let me go from there. What we can offer in Java EE application security is authentication, authorization, and permission API, which was introduced latest introduction to the stuff. All the our beans are CDI ready, so the integration is mostly CDI right now with the Java EE applications, and also REST security. So there is a identity which is called stateless identity, and its primary usage is for REST security. Then identity management. In identity management part, we have built-in plumbing for database identity stores or LDAP identity stores. You can do a lot of useful stuff in that. You can map here and take it forward to your database, to your LDAP. You can even have part of the attributes in database, the other part in LDAP. It's very flexible. And yeah, as it says in the second point, it's rich and extensible, and also aims for multi-tenancy. Not sure of the current status of this, but I think we are getting there slowly. So identity federation, that was the part of the project which started quite a time ago, and I think most of you, if you heard of PicketLink, you heard the identity federation part and maybe some presentation. So what we have there, it's a SAML version 2 and version 1.1 support. We have IDPs, we have SPs, different login modules for those purposes. Also, WildFly is in there for application clients. Then XHTML version 2 as well, which is stuff which was ported from another project run by JBoss. Then OpenID and security token server for WS Trust is also part of it. So you see that on Identity Federation we have something to offer, and this part was also for now supported in EAP, which is our, in case somebody doesn't know, it's our product, and it's there since EAP 5.2 supported, 5.3 as well, then 6, and 6.3 we have, as I said, that we are going to have a technical preview for PicketLink, but it's just for the part of PicketLink which is concerning the IDM and basically for the IDM part, but the authentication as well. And this one, Identity Federation, is going to be normally supported as it was before.
So what is the current state in the AP 6.2? If I want to
in
summon, for example,
it is supported.
It is supported.
Yeah. But for example, as I said, not completely the whole federation, all of this is not supported. It's not going to be supported in the AP 6.3 and OpenID as well. Just this one, security token server, XHTML and some, which I think is the main concerns. So social login part, there is a Facebook connect, Twitter login, and Google Plus login. There are some useful parts of documentation which you can use. Go and see on picketlink.org site. There is a documentation, and part of it is, I think, not sure, Google login and Twitter login, and also some use case scenarios with Salesforce as well. So might be useful also from this practical point of view. Okay, let's slowly go to Java EE application security. And as I said, I started with application which had some kind of authentication, but it was just grabbing username because of simplicity. And I was wondering myself how much effort it takes to actually make this application PicketLink ready. And to my surprise, it was very easy, so I really can encourage you, if you would like to take a look, go and try. So first of all, we have some modules. We actually structured the PicketLink right now to some modules, and we have PicketLink API module, which has central it's an interface called identity, and it's fairly simple. You see that there is a logged in method, authentication result can be got after login, and logout. When start logging logout, then you can check the permissions with the two methods, and then something which is called get account, which will actually retrieve the account which was used in the authentication process. and the beam which is right now provided is also annotated with naming annotation. So for JSF support, it's very nice. So you can integrate it, and I will show you how it actually worked in my application. So here is the first example of authentication controller. See that we can inject identity to the beam, and then start the login method. This one is very simple, and I should say that it's for me it was like a little not getting used to it to work it that way, but I should say that it's really nice to have everything in your hand. So you see that I will show you the sources, but the get current user after successful login, it was really easy. This one created the user object which was already in the application, so it's not a user provided by PicketLink, it was a user object or user entity which was used in the application. And the other side is JSF. So this is more like a preview. So you see how it is handled on the user interface side. So JSF input text and see the login credentials user ID, which is the other useful object. So first we have to actually put everything in the login credentials. I grab your user ID and password, and then call authentication controller, what we saw before, with login method, and this very user ID and password. We have different kind of login credentials, and I will show you later which of them. So you are not limited just for username and password. And everything is also integrated with the IDM, so at the end there is a backend store on the other side, so you can actually validate against the identity store of some kind, or you can fake it a little bit like I did in those quick starts, just for the purpose of easier configuration. So you can, for the demo applications, you can create all those objects by yourself, and it works actually the same way. So here is a little explanation of the whole process. So user calls login method on identity, and then login method on identity. It's like tries to call authenticate method, then authenticate method on the provided authenticator, getting status if it's successful. Here on the picture it's a little weird. So actually this method goes before that get agents, and if it's not getting agent but it's getting get out, I have to fix the documentation, and the post authenticate method is called, so you can actually finish stuff you really would like to do afterwards. So simple authenticator, as you can see, there is the override of authenticate method. This one is really simple on real life scenario, but see that there is an inject of default login credentials. That was the thing we have seen on the JSF forum, and from this part you are getting all the information which was provided. Default login credentials are username and password based, but you can use all the other credentials they are provided by PicketLink.
That's good. Is the PicketLink annotation?
PicketLink annotation is for that it's actually advertising the simple authenticator to the CDI that we have simple authenticator in our application.
So what is the difference between this and, let's say, named? If I just create it as a bean,
I think this is because it has to be handled somehow inside PicketLink as well, so that's why it's marked especially in PicketLink. So some facts about PicketLink annotation. So it indicates that this used to be, it can be injected in the authentication process. There are also a couple of authenticators provided already in PicketLink, but you are free to actually, or encouraged to actually write your own PicketLink one. Probably you will. Then credentials. This is what we have already. So credentials provide some evidences of the user's identity, and we have these types of credentials. So we have username, password credentials, POTP credentials, X509, and digest credentials. Subject probably go with some others if necessary. And you can find in JBoss developer framework there is a part which is called PicketLink Quick Starts or JBoss PicketLink Quick Starts. I don't know exactly, but it's very, very easy to find. And you can find usage of each of them inside the Quick Starts. So if there is any doubt, documentation. I think the Quick Starts are better than documentation, especially for programmers. So as I already told you, the default login credentials are already there, just as a convenience. And inject, which already works quite nice. I was trying to inject it to a different beans. It's working fine without any problems. So I took the JBoss task JSF application. You actually can see that. So here are resources. We have index XHTML for the JSF stuff. That's what you've already seen. So I modified this one a little bit to put the login credentials, user ID, login credentials, password, and then authentication controller call to login method. You see that it is very easy, and you don't have to actually pass the credentials because it goes through the injected login credentials bin, which I think is quite nice. Then we can see the authentication controller. So the original thing contained the user, DAO, faces, context, conversation, and stuff. Then I put the identity because we somehow need the identity there, and then identity manager, which is part of PicketLink. It's a PicketLink identity manager. And here we go with some other stuff. Get current user, but first I should start with login. So login method looks like this. We can actually call login on the identity, and identity should be pre-filled with everything needed. And if the result is actually different or failed, then we created the user, the DAO one, and started conversation. Here is the logout, which was already there on a different form. See that we simply call identity logout and done, and finish the conversation. Then there is a check. Actually, this is not needed for PicketLink anymore, because you can use identity straight away. But I just followed what was in the application, so we will change the implementation. And clear user, this is the original stuff which was there. And that's basically it for the out controller. So I don't know if I should start it, but okay. Maybe you noticed that I already used the configuration called standalone PicketLink, which contains subsystems for WildFly or for EAP. So we can use my users defined. Oh. I also remember more than I would like to. So this is how the application looks like. See, very easy. This is the logout, which will be mapped to the authenticator logout, as we've seen. We can create the task. Application is very simple. You are just adding tasks, and you can complete task, and actually it is delete the task from the list of tasks. So after logout, we are back. Very simple. And then I proceed with authorization to this application, and that's why we have the permission API. Actually, later I decided not to use permissions API, but I would like to tell you something about permissions API, which is already in there. And we have also a different kind of checking if user is part of the role or not. So not necessarily has to go through the permissions API. But what is permission in PicketLink point of view? Permission is something which aggregates resource, then assigning and operation. Resource, maybe resource class, maybe just an object which is resourced, or probably serializable resource identifier. We will see later how it can be useful. So it's already what I was talking about. Assign is identity to which the permission is assigned, then operation, which is just a string which says what is the operation on the resource, and reference is a reference to the object or class in question of the given permission. I think in normal words we should call it resource. Then we can check permissions with those two methods. One is just permission on the object, and the other one is permission on the class with the identifier, which is useful in situations where you don't want to retrieve the object first and then check your permissions, so you can do it up front with the identifier. So you don't have to fetch the object from the database. So this is the first example of usage. As I said, we can check identity if identity has permission to the concrete account with delete action, which means we can delete the account. And the other example shows us the usage that we just passed customer ID, and on the customer class we check if the class with this ID, which at the end will be instance of some customer, but we don't have to fetch it. We can check the permissions before. And in the context of delete, it's even better because we don't have a permission to delete it, so why to fetch it? You can see that, for example, create operation. Create operation was also set with the class operation to true, which means that this is going to be this permission will be checked on the whole class. So next slide will actually show you that you can check the has permission. On the class. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about identity management. It's a fundamental module for which is also already behind the stuff we already seen, and I can show you just a little trick which was used here, the class was called IDM initializer, so it's not just for the ease of configuration. So you see that identity manager was actually, they were created to users, put inside the partition manager was created identity manager, and then users were put inside identity manager with some password, and some roles were created, and relationship manager actually put the proper users to proper roles. So you see that Jane is employee and Mary is administrator. And I put a little bit of a difference of a different stuff to my application, and it's controller here. So there is a check for authentication checker checks if the user has application has their own admin, and then the whole thing is based on. It's a little bit different. That's a kind of a traditional thing, role checking than permission stuff. If you would like to go a little bit more fine grained, you have to go with permissions. So let's talk about part of identity management. What it actually does. It provides API for managing identities, users, whatever you can think of, users, groups, roles. The system is flexible, so you can introduce your own. You can use mapping, and we already provide in EAP, something which we call basic model, which contains users, groups, and rows. So if you are fine with it, go on. If not, there are some examples of more complicated stuff, and users are free to enter their set of things. So first of all, partition manager, which is managing what is called identity partitions, kind of a container for identity objects. Then there is an identity manager, which is used just within the scope of one partition. Then relationship manager, which can manage the relationships across the whole bundle. And also identity store, and currently there are 3 identity stores implemented. It's a JPA identity stores, so you can hook your database. Then OLDAP identity store and file-based identity store, all configurable to some extent. So this is the picture of the whole thing. As you see, partition manager is kind of the main guy here, and you can get relationship manager, identity store, or identity manager out of the partition manager, as you have already seen in the code, and then identity store split. That's the basic idea behind identity management. I'm going to talk about the configuration and what's possible and what's not. Check the documentation on PicketLink.org site, which already covers all the options for different identity stores, and also how to create and manage permissions, because I didn't mention that you have to first load your permissions from some policy or based on some policy or whatever you wish. So there is a facility for that, so you can get the permission manager and set the permissions in your application on the slowly approaching to what we already was talking about. So one more time, a single sign-on solution for the PicketLink Federation. Some of existing OpenID and token service. Oh, sorry, list. And also supported servers, because the project was recently in the new generation project was split. In 2.1 version we had everything in one repository, but right now we have actually two projects. One is called we call it PicketLink or PicketLink Core, which contains IBM plus the core of the federation, and those bindings to different servers are managed in different projects called PicketLink bindings. And you can find bindings for WildFly, JBoss AS7, which means EAP as well, and also for the older version of JBoss application server, even Tomcat 5.5 is supported. So PicketLink WildFly subsystems, that's the last point. As you know, WildFly or EAP has very nice facilities for managing domain or servers. So you can actually leverage it to your PicketLink configurations, and you don't have to You don't have to use any more PicketLink XML file, deployment descriptor, and bundle it to your deployment. You can do whatever you wish, and then set your subsystems. Subsystems are actually two. One is for IDM, and the other is for federation. Maybe useful thing is that the last line, where in a JBoss role documentation examples config standalone, there is a standalone PicketLink which contains a couple of configurations which might be useful to start with, and including IBM and including someone. Is there somebody who was working with the PicketLink Federation before, or who knows how PicketLink XML deployment descriptor looks like? So maybe
intimidate.
Yeah. So you can see the configuration roughly here. See the identity provider, which is the name of the deployment, URL, trust domains, and then all the things you will actually get used to it. And maybe they are a little bit differently ordered or something, but all the stuff actually is in there, and it is organized by the federation name, so you can reference your configuration by different names. So you see that we have a different federation, simple post binding or simple redirect binding, etc. And here is the subsystem for identity manager, and you see that there is a partition manager, JMDI name, some. So I find this resource very useful, and it's much more easier, even when writing tests, to actually have lots of stuff pre-configured and use the stuff. It's much more easier than tweaking your PicketLink XML file, and especially with different IP addresses running on different configurations of your servers. It's easier to actually substitute something on the WildFly configuration or EAP configuration than on the time when you are bundling your application. Let's see some highlights of the PicketLink Federation subsystem. That's what I already said. It's a centralized configuration. No need for PicketLink XML. And with the subsystems, no need for additional dependencies. I think should be added automatically to the deployment once you deploy it. And the same for identity management. We have IDU configurations for partition manager configurations. You can then use CDI and inject the instances or the right instances of partition manager. And as I said, the PicketLink IDM alone should be also used without additional dependencies, which is kind of nice, because it's always pending to run. If you are working with something and you have a slightly different version on your development environment than on your production environment or test environment, which cause funny problems. It's just what I used. And that's all from me. If you have any questions, I can try to answer.
Yeah, man. I think was supporting